And we're live. Hello, everyone. You know, I'm going to ask a question. Did you have a good conference?
Hey, I did.
Great. And thank you so much for staying until, you know, it's a Friday evening. It's a Friday evening. That's all I got to say. And you're here for a closing panel, so thank you for that. We're going to try and wrap up on time so you can get home or miss your flight. But before I start, I want everyone to quickly introduce themselves in case someone did walk into the wrong conference and don't know who these people are. So, Max, can you start quickly?
I'm Max Shafirov, CEO of JetBrains.
Stephanie Cuthbertson, PM Director, Android.
Romain Guy, I work at Google on Android, and I'm Jake's manager. That's the only good thing. That's the only good thing I can say about myself these days.
Andrei Breslav, project lead of Kotlin.
Roman Yelzar, working on Kotlin libraries.
William Cook, I'm a professor at the University of Texas at Austin in the computer science department.
My name's Christina Lee, and I'm an Android engineer at Pinterest.
My name is Hans Doctor. I'm the founder of Gradle and the CEO of Gradle Inc.
I'm Tor Norby, and I'm a Kotlin addict. And I'm also the tech lead for Android Studio.
And I'm Hadi, and I had to end up doing this. Anyway, so the idea here is that you folks ask the questions, right? There's two people at the back that are going to walk around with mics, and it'll be more fun if you ask it, because otherwise we're going to ask all of the pre-prepared questions. I'm joking. But anyway, does anyone have a question to start with? And you've got to be really quick. There you go. There's a question right there in the audience. Make it controversial.
I don't know if it's controversial, but I'm just wondering how long till Android Studio on mobile, Chrome, any of the other OSs?
We don't have any announcement at this point.
So that's a yes?
Right. Any other questions that doesn't involve release dates? Over here, for answer. Oh, okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
What feature of Kotlin are you most envious of from other language that you'd like to bring in, something from other places?
Okay, I guess this one goes to me. So what haven't I stolen yet that I would like to see, okay? I guess, well, one of the biggest things would be immutable data. That's a great thing to have, and those functional languages somehow have it. I want it. It's difficult.
If I could comment, it's important to... It's more important what features you leave out than what you include.
Mike went out.
Sorry. It's more important what features you leave out than what features you include. So we're going to show restraint.
I totally agree to Will.
Anton had a question over there.
Hello. With all of the new developments like native, JavaScript and stuff, are you sure you're not forgetting the Java compatibility that brought actually most of the people here?
I'm fairly sure we're not forgetting that. We're actually investing a lot of effort into maintaining Java compatibility.
Okay, any other questions? And start raising your hands as we're answering the other ones.
So you're working on Kotlin native and all these other things, but you're using CLine for Kotlin native, you're using all these other things. Will we see a common IDE for native code, for Gradle support, for native C++, for all these things tied together into one nice shiny IDE that we don't have to be switching between 6 different IDEs to use all these tools?
Isn't that Android Studio?
No. I think this probably goes to me. Well, right now we're trying to find out the proper project model for these kind of things, and frankly, this is the limiting factor right now, because every platform has its common or the project model they use too. Like Xcode has Xcode format, like Android Studio has Gradle, and so we need to somehow unify this. So we're working on it.
I can add, for me, I think one of the most exciting parts about Kotlin is the code sharing, actually. And I hope someone asks us more about that so that I can get Andre and people to talk more about it. But I think Max is right. I think we're really excited about seeing people use Kotlin in many, many other places and being able to have a great IDE experience, which JetBrains obviously is a pretty incredible IDE to start from.
Hi. Given the one of the main value props with Kotlin is the fact that they interop with Java and that can compile down to Java bytecode, are you at all worried that Oracle owns Java and they might do something that would prevent you guys from pleasing everyone here?
And that is not controversial at all. So who wants to play rock, paper, scissors to answer this one? Stephanie?
You want me to take that one? You know, I just feel really good about deferring to Andre on this question. Is the language.
Okay. Okay, so are we worried that Oracle will use the bytecode against us? Well, not really. I mean, Oracle sometimes does things against their own interests, but that would be too much, I think.
And I don't think they will. It's all clear in terms of licensing and stuff. Yeah. It just there's no issue.
Yeah, that's what I'd say from a licensing standpoint. It's very clear.
Yeah. So how long will it take you to support Java 9?
So the Java 9 support is around the corner, I would say. So actually, we did basic things already in 1.1.5, if I'm not mistaken. And all the rest is coming in 1.2, and RC is already there. So,
speaking of version numbers, will there be a Kotlin 2.0 ever, maybe?
Okay. Okay, so that's an interesting question. So our version numbers mean that if the first number changes, it's incompatible changes in the language. Like we're leaving something out, we're removing something we did wrong in the past. We did things wrong in the past. So I would actually like, at some point, to get rid of that. But we first need to, of course, build up the proper replacement and migrate everyone. And we're actually working on this. So we've recently published our breaking changes policy. It's not final yet, it's public review, but still, we're actually, myself, Will, and Jeffrey Van Gogh, who's not here, we're working on those rules and reviewing current changes to the language that are not entirely backwards compatible. So our creed there is we want Kotlin to be robust, sustainable, and we realize that to keep it modern over time, we'll need to drop things, not very fast. We're not dropping everything tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow, and the next day. But we will be evolving the language in such a manner that old things actually die out. So yes, there probably will be 2.0 at some point. No dates, but yeah.
So what did you do wrong?
Oh, sorry. So there are problematic things of different scale. So the most bothersome ones are some things around companion objects and controversy with statics. And the other one is inheritance by delegation. It's things that are very appealing on the surface, but then they have so many implications in language design that hinder now many other things. So I'd like to change things there. We're thinking on how to phase them out in a reasonable way.
So JetBrains found a solution for $1 billion mistake of Java. How much did it cost you?
Max?
Wait. Should I answer?
Huh?
Should I understand this question as how much we invested in Kotlin?
Yes. Do you want that in dollars or euros? Or team size?
Yeah, that's I can do. We have around 50 people working on Kotlin right now.
So in comparison to the rest of the teams, that is what? The second largest at JetBrains?
Not
yeah,
third.
Third, I believe. So
third largest.
There's IntelliJ team, ReSharper team, and then Kotlin team.
So, you don't have the latest accounts in your pocket then, no? No, I'm joking. Okay, I have a question, and it's for Hans. Now, you know what I'm going to ask you. Yes. When are you going to deprecate Groovy? In favor of JavaScript. We all know that Kotlin is just a stepping stone to get to JavaScript.
Yeah, we're waiting for improved multi-threading with JavaScript, right? So.
Yeah. But now the real question: how is the adoption of Groovy in Kotlin in terms of Gradle in relation to Groovy, and where are you seeing that going?
Yeah, I would say at the moment, because the Gradle Kotlin DSL is not 1.0 yet, right? So that's why still most people use Groovy to write their Gradle scripts, right? So, but we expect that to change pretty rapidly once this is 1.0. We plan for Q1 in 2018. So yeah, so and the good thing is you can introduce it incrementally. You don't have to change your complete build, right? You can start with certain plugins, right, to make them more performant, and then you can go build script by build script. So that's why we expect a lot of mixed kind of build logic scenarios initially.
Are we going to have one of those convert build.gradle to Kotlin actions in the IDE?
I'm betting on Android Studio for that.
All right.
So.
Nice comeback. Any questions? Yes, there's one over there. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I probably have a question for Google guys. What do you think about providing more native APIs in Android, like extending NDK with ability to render like Windows payments API and so on?
I think, do you want me to take that one? I think it's a really interesting idea, but I think for us, it's always a trade-off, kind of a focus question. I think you can see we're making a ton of investments in Android's developer experience, and the question is kind of where to focus. How many people in the room would like to see native Kotlin support on Android? Raise your hand. Tor, that's a lot of people.
Quite a few.
Okay, that's good feedback. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question. We've definitely been talking about it in the last 2 days, so thanks for the feedback. I don't have anything to announce like right now, but feedback. Actually, can I go back and answer one other question?
Yeah,
or is
sure.
it okay if I answer the Chrome question a little more directly? Okay. So someone asked a question about running Android Studio on Chrome OS, which is a really good question. So we have talked about that. The challenge for us is always like where to focus, and so we've been getting a lot of feedback. If you're getting the sense that Android Studio is super community-driven, and Android overall, that's totally accurate. So like Zach and a bunch of other people that we talk to all the time have told us the primary things we need to focus on are things like Kotlin, build speeds, emulators, profilers, and things of that nature, especially like with the new architecture components, which we're really excited about, building tools which are combined with those API changes. We are really interested in Chrome too, but what we've heard so far is that some of those changes out-prioritize those, so we've been kind of thinking about it that way. If there's people who are like, no, you should totally be focused on Chrome OS, that would be really good feedback. I think we're very responsive. We would really appreciate the feedback, but that's kind of how we've been thinking about it right now. It's a little more direct answer, yeah.
Is somebody else going?
Go ahead. Okay. You're up.
I have 2 questions. First, Stephanie, are you sure you didn't like drop a hint to the magician last night or anything before you talked to him?
I found out about 7 minutes before I got on stage that I was going to be on stage. So no hints. No.
The second question is around like reflection. So every now and then when I've been coding Java in the past, like I bump up against the reflection limitations pretty quickly. Like that just either it doesn't have the feature that I'm looking for, or everyone says don't use reflection in Java because it's bad or something like that. So I guess my question is there any hope that like Kotlin could add new stuff that like around like metadata? You know, I work at Microsoft. C# has really good reflection, and I know they generate a lot of like metadata in C# and stuff like that. So I guess I'm just curious if there's any opportunities for that.
So our current thinking is that we shouldn't invest too much into like runtime reflection, but rather into build time things like Java has those annotation processors, which is like a first step of proper compiler plugins that can process code. So we're looking into building a more like fully fledged infrastructure for post-processing Kotlin code at build time. So that should alleviate the need for a lot of reflection use cases. And the rest of it, well, actually jamming reflection onto existing runtimes is a challenge. So for JavaScript, for example, and probably native, we're not having anything but opt-in reflection. On Java, there is probably already too much reflection for many use cases, making types reified. So what the biggest difference with C# is that all the type information is available at runtime with C# and not with Java. There are interesting ideas of how to do this. Doesn't seem to be very important to actual developers, so it's not very high on the priority list, but it's a possibility.
It was you over there, yeah.
Okay. So back on the server side, as machines are starting to get huge amounts of memory, terabytes of memory, what is the vision for Kotlin potentially to have like idiomatic off-heap storage support on the JVM, or do you expect that to be something that's more on the Kotlin native side that we're going to see support for huge memory?
Well, I don't recall any discussions of this particular case, so probably it's just too early to talk about it.
Yes.
So, great, sorry. As far as the common platform stuff goes, it's something that's personally really exciting to me, and I'm really interested to see some of the things that kind of develop in that kind of common standard library. You know, dates, I think, is a great example that was, you know, just kind of like thrown around in the demo, but I wonder if you guys could talk a little bit more about what you see kind of that common platform evolving into as far as standard libraries go.
I think it's for you.
Yeah, first of all, we definitely plan to support most of the existing standard library that Kotlin has, with the exception of like things like files, which don't apply to many platforms. Like they probably won't be like common. We're also working on a bunch of libraries around Kotlin that's under umbrella of Kotlin X, where we do plan to provide like things like dates, you know, serialization, other forms of handbound or REST services API in a common form, so that you can write your lower levels of your code once and then get them, you know, compiled on different platforms just by reusing your code. So that's the plan.
I guess the question was about what particular API is going to be standardized.
So in particular, well, the APIs in particular will be like, we'll definitely have dates, we'll definitely have file. So we're focusing, if you look at the application, we're focusing on them from bottom down. So our vision that you should share your data, that's what we can already do, but you should also be able to share your network communication stack, etc. That's what we'll be able, you know, to share between different platforms. Of course, all the like top parts of the stack, like UI, will be, of course, platform specific.
Gentleman at the back.
I had a question for Dr. Cook. Do you see any opportunity for Kotlin in the like computer science education field? And also, as a Texas alum, it's really cool to see you up there.
Thank you.
And a good question.
I definitely can see Kotlin in the future. I don't know of any university that's adopted it yet as a teaching language. I think it would be quite a good teaching language. And so that's something that I'd like to talk about and find out, how to get it kind of influence the universities to be able to adopt it and explore it. I will probably talk to my university about it, but I don't know if there are any other professors here. It's going to take a while, I think.
Well, I can add a little bit to that. in fact, there is a number of schools that are starting teaching Kotlin, at least 2 in Russia, and I think at least 1 in Europe. And the feedback we're getting so far has been positive, but people have to build up courses from scratch and, you know, and all the ecosystem. So it will take time, of course.
So, question over here. Yes.
I would like to add a bit. So we just released the education plugin for IntelliJ, so you can build the courses. The teachers can build the courses for students, and students can solve the tasks. So we invested into making this possible.
Go ahead.
I think it was during Google I/O that was announced that Google and JetBrains were going to partner to have a foundation to host the language. Wonder if there is any update there. Thank you.
So either Stephanie or Max could answer that. So I suggest you do a rock, paper, scissors and see who does it.
Ready? Okay, ready? Yeah.
This wasn't planned.
Okay. Does that mean I do it, or you? Okay, I'll answer. We can both answer. So we've set up the several structures already. So there's a language committee that Andre and Will and Jeffrey Van Gogh are sitting on, and the notes, I believe, are already public for the language committee. The structure of the foundation we're just working through with our various legal people, which is not Max and I, to explain to us like what's the exact right structure. And our goal is to have the foundation set up very shortly. But in effect, the organization is already in place in that we have the language steering committee together. We have a Google member, an independent member who's William Cook, and then a JetBrains member. Really, the goal with the language is for the language to be a community-driven language. That's what we had all talked about from the outset. I think we're very much care about making sure it continues forward in, what's the word I want to look for? A thoughtful manner, so that it remains well-structured, but also that it's one where we're thinking a lot about the community's involvement. Do you want to talk any more about that?
Nope.
Okay. Okay. We could Rosham again.
There was a question.
Yeah.
I think this gentleman here was, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi. By supporting so many platforms like JVM, LLVM, aren't you afraid that at a certain point development of Kotlin will become slower?
Mm-hmm. I guess when projects grow older, they become slower naturally, and we'll definitely have some of that. And actually, well, given how fast we are now, I'd rather we are a little slower because it's too difficult to track everything. Yeah, but altogether, we are aware of this tendency, and we're trying to be, you know, not to become like an old corporate structure that doesn't move much at all. Yeah, so in particular, I think it's very much about priorities, and we value development of the language very highly. Stability is important, but development is very important too.
Gentleman here.
Hi. So I have 2 quick questions. I'm here. The first one is, so one of the way people in the Android community have learned is by opening, you know, APKs and decompiling code and seeing what others do. And it could just be my experience. I could just have not had luck, but it felt like when I was decompiling dexes that contain Kotlin, the tools that exist out there were not up to date, were producing things that didn't really make any sense. So I guess my first question is there, and maybe that's just an experience and just me finding a bug, or maybe is there anyone looking at going from Dex to maybe Kotlin or to readable Java? I guess that's the first question, and maybe there's no answer. The second one was, so there was a very interesting talk about functional programming and monads. And when I look at that, my brain just shuts down, right? And I don't really understand anything. But on the other hand, 5 years ago, I would have said, ArgsJava, I don't understand that stuff. And maybe coroutines seem crazy. And so I'm thinking, does anyone have an opinion that maybe we're just building up on knowledge, and in maybe 5 years or 10 years, we'll be super comfortable with all these monoids and flat map and all of that, and or maybe no.
Okay, let's answer the decompile question first.
Yeah, stop looking at other people's code.
Well, I mean, I think it's true that there is maybe a legal issue, right? So I know that in IntelliJ, when you open a bytecode, you get the decompiler, and you have to click through a license saying, I promise not to do anything bad, right?
Okay. So regarding the functional programming, so functional programming is not about scary words, actually. So I don't believe we'll be all talking the scary language in 5 years from now. But it's very apparent that the concepts, the useful concepts from the functional programming tradition are flowing into the mainstream, and this will not stop, probably. I'm not sure how many more new concepts will be adopted, but the already transplanted concepts will be adopted more widely, I think. Yeah,
Christina.
but monoids, not really.
You want to answer that from a non-language designer point of view?
Yeah. Oh, I'm good at the not non-language designer point of view. So you already know I love FP. I think we're seeing a lot of adoption of it on Android, and it is slow but steady march. I do think that to your question about you saying that, oh, 5 years ago I would have never thought that I was using RX. I think that when we feel that way about FP, it's usually because we haven't heard an explanation that was given to us in a way that we could understand. And I think so much of FP is approachable with the tools that we have now. For instance, when I was at our startup a couple years back, we were writing very functional code given the tools that we already had now. Is there stuff that we can, develop and get in the future that would make our FP better? Yes, but I don't think that it's all or nothing. I think that even with just like having lambdas, we're already seeing a lot of people kind of awaken to a bunch of FP principles in their Android apps and in other code. And so I don't think that you have to dive in with the reader monad for your dependency injection framework or anything like that to benefit from what functional program gives you, which is, I think, echoing what you were already saying, of that you don't need it all to kind of reap the benefits, and so those ones that are sliding into mainstream already, I think we're benefiting from, and I'm personally excited about it.
Hi. So as a Java developer, when I was learning Kotlin, what I really loved about it was that hello? It improved on a lot of the pitfalls of Java, and really allows you to create pragmatic, clean code. And that's what I learned as I kept, mastering Kotlin. But now that we're expanding to different platforms, does that change how you decided to add features to Kotlin, or has that changed the roadmap for Kotlin?
So, to clarify, so are you asking what are we planning in terms of language features or in general?
I guess language features, because as you add these features, you want them to be relevant to all platforms.
Okay.
Right?
Well, actually, the way we see Kotlin in the multi-platform world is that we have the core language common for all platforms, and then some platform-specific extensions, because we actually believe that every platform has its own unique power, even JavaScript. Sorry. So there are specific extensions that, like, dynamic types are not available in native or JVM. They're only for JavaScript. Java-style platform types are not available in native or JavaScript because they're irrelevant there, so on and so forth. So not every language feature has to be present on all platforms because some features only make sense for a particular platform. But of course, features like that change the way we program in general, like coroutines, for example, are available on all platforms, and we want them to remain so. So yeah, I wouldn't say multi-platform case hinders the specific features for other platforms, but there definitely will be challenges in terms of supporting something on all platforms that's more easy on one and more difficult on another. So if talking about specific features, we'll be looking into things like SAM conversions, for example, and that is probably going to all platforms, while, say, supporting default methods is Java-only thing.
There was a question.
Hey. Okay. So in the keynote, we heard about how RX is somewhat old news and like get on board with coroutines. I'm just wondering, from the Android people, how do you feel about that? And have you started to think about, hey, we're not going to use async tests, we're going to use coroutines? Or for a new aspects of architecture components, we're going to rely on coroutines instead of exposing things as observables?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of thinking right now about what we're going to do with Kotlin. We are not using it in the platform itself for now. There are many reasons, some of them technical, some of them because also there's a lot of developers out there who still want to use Java, and we don't want to antagonize them. Java is still a very good language. But yeah, we're definitely interested in, now that we have the interrupt guide and the style guides out, we're going to start doing more technical things around Kotlin, and hopefully we'll have something to show at some point. But yeah, it would be nice to have something better than async task.
You know, just to comment on that, and I was actually saying it to you, Anis. You know, Eric Meyer had a keynote this morning, right? And he came and he said, "Oh, RX is dead." And then later on, I overheard someone saying, "That guy has no clue what he's talking about. He doesn't even know what RX is." So anyway, Christina, you use RX, right? Are you going to switch to coroutines now?
Yeah, so I think I might get booed off stage for saying this, but as someone who's not affiliated with JetBrains and not affiliated with Google and kind of doesn't have skin in the game, I've talked to you actually a lot about the difficulties in adopting new technologies within a company. And I think I've met a lot of people at this conference who have been the voice at their own company saying, like, we should adopt this new technology. We need to move in this direction. And the cost of that from a personal perspective for your coworkers is really, really high. And so we have not talked about coroutines at our company. And it's the last thing that I want to do personally right now, not because I don't believe in them, but because I think that you have to meet people where they are. And right now, our world is developing really, really quickly. And so like we're asking them to adopt Kotlin and move away from their Java expertise. And we're asking them to adopt new architecture components. And we're asking them to do all of these things that are foreign. And so my personal opinion is that we need to meter that, because people can get really overwhelmed and they can feel lost and left behind, and that's really bad for team dynamics. So I'm super excited about coroutines. I went to your talk and it got me so jazzed, and so I can't wait to throw them in every side project that I can. But just from a very honest and like raw opinion, transitioning the team to Kotlin right now is like a full-time job, and so I don't know that we're going to make that more complex by also switching off RX at the same time.
Christina, you will. I mean, our industry is a scam. Every 5 or 10 years, we reinvent the same thing again and again. It keeps us employed. So, you know.
That's it. All right. You heard it here first.
Roman, I just wanted to ask you, as the guy that writes coroutines, what is your perspective in terms of will coroutines replace RX or not, or how they fit in together?
So the coroutines are not designed to replace RX or anything like that. It's complementary solutions to similar problems. But what works better, it really depends on what kind of application you're writing. So if your application is mostly like data flows, you're taking data from one side, doing something, sending the other, then RX works great. RX is all about data flows, you know. And you see examples, they're short and concise in RX. But if your application is doing like complex business logic, like if you're using Conrad's talk on using coroutines in Spring, like doing some conditions, if checking something, lots of logic that you want to understand and grasp, then the coroutines help you. So it's not, they're not like, you know, one or the other. Like you're gonna have application where you use both, because each one of them like caters to different use cases.
I think that was, yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering, there's some discussion that pops up occasionally online about whether newcomers to programming should start with Java or start with Kotlin. And I'm kind of on the fence, and I was just wondering if you guys had an opinion on whether it's easier or harder, and why you think it would be easier or harder to start with Kotlin.
So I think someone non-biased should answer that.
I don't see
anyone non-biased on this panel?
Well, it's probably
Hans, you kind of, yeah.
You think?
Okay, I know you love groovy, but
don't say groovy.
No.
Don't say groovy.
No. For me, I would. So there are two aspects here. One is the ecosystem, also the learning ecosystem, right? And the other is the language itself. From the language itself, I find the Kotlin the more consistent, easier language, right? It's more powerful, but even for learning a language, that's my opinion. From a learning ecosystem, in terms of resources and having question answered, then of course Java is of course still much richer ecosystem. So I wouldn't have an answer how to balance that. And I guess it depends a lot on the person, what kind of exploratory spirit they have, or whether they want to have everything kind of served out of the box. But yeah.
Over there. So, what?
That side of the room has been kind of ignored.
Oh,
over there.
Over there. Sorry. Right to the right. Right. Left a little bit, yeah.
Here. Stop.
There you go. Duncan.
So what lessons have the different members of the panel learned from the sort of communities around C#, Scala, and Swift? What can we learn from those?
I'm afraid I didn't catch.
Yeah, can you repeat it a little bit louder?
I'm not sure that's my job. It seems to me that there's C#, which we can draw lessons from. There's Scala, the rise, fall, rise, I don't know where Scala is, and Swift as well. What lessons are we learning from their adoption, their communities?
So who wants to answer that one?
What languages do we use?
So one interesting thing from our perspective, Scala struggled a lot by not having a scalable toolchain and by having language constructs like an extremely slow compiler, right, or certain language features that requires that you have the whole transitive path, right, in your compile class path. That made it very hard for organizations that adopted Scala at scale to have fast feedback cycles. So it was a serious problem.
Well, the whole tool integration. I mean, I think that's what's so amazing about Kotlin is that IntelliJ came with amazing tool support. Yeah. Whereas often these JVM languages come out and they have really interesting features, but the tooling is incomplete. So you're sort of going back to Notepad to use the language features.
I want to add to that. At our company, we're obviously looking at both Kotlin and Swift, and I think that one of the things that we've seen in practice is that the sharing of information between those teams, the barrier for that has gotten dramatically lower. And so things that our iOS team is doing right now, they're amazing, and they're solving these really real problems, and they're things that we want to bring into our Android app. And before, there were enough differences where that wasn't really realistic, but now that we're both looking at languages that support a very similar feature set, we are having lunch constantly and talking about how they approach it and bringing that into our app. And I just feel like we've kind of dropped this boundary between those two teams, and we have the ability to capitalize on strengths across both of those teams. And that's something that we didn't have. So it's not necessarily a learning taking away from Swift, but we share a much more similar language now, which means that we can capitalize on that collective knowledge across all of our devs.
There was someone on the right before you just.
Hello. Well, thank you very much. It is two questions. The first one, I think it's easier. Is Google thinking to acquire JetBrains?
Question was for Google.
What do you think? Do you want to get bought?
Well, we are not to be acquired.
Thank you. And the second one is for JetBrains team.
Do we want to acquire Google? Not yet.
The second one is for the JetBrains teams. And are you taking into account, or maybe you are already doing that, to use artificial intelligence to make the IDE more intelligent? Or any plans to do these kind of things?
For what?
Well, the question is because I hear the Eric Meyer effort to make the software, create software. So I was thinking maybe JetBrains was thinking to use artificial intelligence to make the IDE more intelligent, do better suggestion, also maybe suggest things better than the things that we can do.
Okay, I think I got an answer. So we currently experimenting with this stuff, and there is a first practical thing that we made is we have a code completion engine which is trained by a neural network, and it shows much better results than a set of heuristics we had before for choosing proper variants for completion lists.
Also, but I apologize for not answering your question directly, and I wanted to. No, Google has no plans or intention of acquiring JetBrains. I will say it has been one of the greatest delights of my career to have a chance to work with people like Max and Andre, who are, I think, of a very amazing caliber in that they're it is clear in everything that they do that they care very deeply about making developers happy, and I think that is a good thing for many platforms. So I think we feel very lucky to have a chance to work with them, but I think it's actually wonderful that they're autonomous, and it's a wonderful attribute for Kotlin. If you think about the role of the language in code sharing, I think that independence is very valuable. So it's a direct answer.
But you do realize that if we do add more artificial intelligence to our tools, it will put all of us out of a job, right? So we've got to keep a balance. I think we've got time for your last question, and one more. Okay, one more at the back, and then you. Yes, go over there.
Yeah. So the reason I really got into Kotlin early on was like it had all these nice features, but the language is still like fairly simple, and it like kind of unlike other unnamed languages, it didn't throw everything in. And I'm just wondering if kind of as you add more features, as the language advances, if there's been any concern that maybe the language will become too complicated, or has there been any kind of internal concern or in the community, and you guys kind of have a strategy for making sure that we don't wake up and kind of have a Rube Goldberg language?
I think what he's saying is don't become C++. Okay.
I thought he was saying Scala.
Yeah, so as Will said, it's things you leave out, not the things you get in, that are very important. So I'd say there is very many features that can be added to the language, but shouldn't be. And we're mostly looking at those things that actually change the experience altogether. Like there's very many small things that can be added and complicate things. And also, so we would like it to be as orthogonal as pragmatically possible. So I don't want the language to turn into C++. And also, there are some new ideas that can change everything. And we are willing to introduce those at some points, but then we'll probably need to phase out some old ideas. So there is a strong inkling to get rid of legacy, unlike other languages, because this is what will keep the ecosystem in shape. And being a tooling company, we can actually afford it. So before, nobody tried to not simply throw an incompatible compiler at the people, but give them tools to migrate and then change the compiler. So yeah, I'll probably do that.
Go ahead. I had one question, but now I had to. Just curious about first question. As I heard, IntelliJ idea written in Java, right? And if so, what part of IntelliJ idea already rewritten in Kotlin? As a first question. And the second question is about coroutines. You said that coroutines, it's not about data flow, right? It's about, I don't know, resolving callback hell and so on. But do you have a plan, have plans to make Kotlin more reactive, some Rx Kotlin, I don't know, like that, or not?
Okay, first about the share of Kotlin in IntelliJ, do you remember?
Oh yeah, I can comment on that. So Kotlin allows to just drop a few classes. So I cannot tell which exactly parts are written in Kotlin. So there are many of them. And in terms of the sheer volume of the code, it's just scratching the surface because IntelliJ is a very big product.
But in Android Studio, we're writing quite a bit of the code in Kotlin. Basically, most of the engineers are doing it at this point.
That's good to know.
Before you, there was a second question.
Yeah. The second question was about making Kotlin more reactive. So we have no particular plans of making Kotlin like, like Reflex or something like turning the program into a spreadsheet. Although there are some ideas in this realm that can be adapted to what we have now, but not for the near future.
And you had the last question.
Is that going to be Kotlin Sheet like you have Scala Sheet? And then the second question is, in iOS and Swift, they have this ecosystem where you have a playground where it's very easy to spin up something without creating a project. Would that ever come to Android?
Yeah, well, we can start with this one and then come back to the...
Tor, do you want to answer that?
Tor?
Me too.
A playground?
Yeah.
The IDE. Is there anything more fun than that?
I think it's a really interesting, cool idea. I think we would love more feedback from people about what you want to see from the IDE. I've been asking a lot of questions all week, and we would just love to hear from you about where you want to see us focus, both in Kotlin and in general. So, yeah.
Andre, you were going to answer the first part?
Oh, I actually forgot what it is. Can you remind me?
Can you repeat the first part, please?
Oh, you mean the IntelliJ support for it? Yeah, so we're looking into it. Well, it will appear at some point.
Great. Well, we're a little bit over time, so we're going to have to wrap it up. Thank you very much for staying late, and see you next time.